Hello, Shelley from Spin Cushions here, and today I'm going to show you a quick tutorial how to make this blanket perfect for beginners, inspired by Dory from the Finding Dory and Finding Nemo movies. Great for beginners because it's just simple straight backwards and forwards rows, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know how to make it. So everything you need to know, all the materials are on the blog spincushions.com. If you just search Finding Dory, I'm sure you'll find it. Now, to start off, we need to make a long row of chain to work our blanket. So the pattern calls for 137 chain, but I'm not going to do that many for this demonstration. You don't want to watch me do the whole thing, so I'm going to start with 37. Now the first thing we need to do is attach our yarn to our hook with a slip knot. So I do that by wrapping my yarn over. See, I've crossed it over. I poke my hook in that loop, grab the yarn and pull it to the front, let go, whoops, and you've got a slip knot. That's all you need to know. Now to do a chain, it's just wrap the yarn over from the back to the front. I'm holding on to that with my other finger, and I just pull that through. That's one chain. Now you don't want to pull it really tight because we're going to have to work into this and you need to be able to get your hook back into it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Actually, I think I'm going to stick with 16 stitches. Pretend that's 137 chain. Now, can you have a look and see? This is the right way. See, if we hold it up this way, it's kind of like a little V with the V from the previous one going into it. If we turn it over on the back, there's just lots of little bumps, like circles with bumps in them. When we're going to be working next, we need to be working this way so we can see those little chain V's all the way across. Now, the instructions say to do a treble in the fourth chain from the hook. Now, a treble is if you're using UK terms. If you're using US terms, it's a double crochet. So, the fourth chain from the hook. Let's have a look. That's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. We're going to work our stitch into this chain here, just into that bottom loop there. But to make a treble stitch or double crochet, we have to put our yarn over first. 1, 2, 3, 4, this is the one. Insert our hook down there. Pull a yarn loop to the front. Now you can see we've got 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. Now, I know we just made 1 stitch there, but this 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, that we left is actually pretending to be our first stitch of these trebles. I'll explain more about that when I get to the next row. So now all we need to do is make another treble stitch into every one of these chain all the way along here. So we've done 1, so we're just poking it down underneath that single bottom loop. This is the fiddliest row of the whole blanket. It'll probably take you a long time, but once you've done this one, you've set up completely for the rest. It really is the worst one of the whole thing. So I've made 3 stitches now. Oops. 4. If you need to work on how to make a treble, I do have a video that just shows you how to make this stitch. Treble for UK terms or double for US terms. But if you've made a granny square before, you already know how to do this. And this is the stitch we're going to use most in this whole blanket. It's mostly made up of these stitches. Oops, just making sure you go under that bottom one only. And as you can see, it is tricky. Here I'm fumbling a bit. a bit harder for me because I'm working through the camera as well. Nearly at the end. A couple more to go. And one more. Oops, sorry. It's probably the fiddliest one to do, that last one. Okay, now we've got a row of stitches. Now remember, this first little loop of lot of chains counts as our first stitch here. So let's count how many stitches we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Which makes sense, because if you did 137 chain and then did a treble like the instructions say, you would have 134 stitches. So I've got 14 stitches, so it's all good. Okay, so now we're ready to do our next row when we work back this way. So what we have to do is turn the work over. So that's the first instruction in our pattern. It says turn, and then it says SS into the top of the last stitch of the last row. Now what that means is slip stitch. All we're going to do is move the yarn from where it is now to being in this hole here. So all you do is insert your hook, bring the yarn from the back to the front and through that loop on the hook. That is a slip stitch. So now what we've done is we've moved the yarn over from the very edge here to into this stitch, and we're going to do chain 3 to start off our next row. 1, 2, 3. Now the reason we do that chain 3 is these stitches, trebles or doubles, wherever you're from, are worked from the top down. And when we turn the row, we're at the bottom, so we have to get up to the top before we can work the rest of them from the top down. So that's our 3 chain, and it counts as our first stitch. All the next stitches, you see we've got these little V's on top here. We poke our hook in underneath both of those strands to work our next stitch. Pull the loop to the front, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. That's our second stitch, because remember that chain 3 counts as 1. And we do that all the way along. Now the trickiest thing to remember is the last stitch. So I'll just pause this, or I'll fast forward until I get to the end so you don't have to watch me doing them all. Okay, so here I am up at the other end. I'll just do this stitch here. Oops. Actually, I'll show you what it looks like. So on the top, you can see we've still got that V there, so that's another stitch we need to do. Sorry. Okay, now that kind of looks like the end, doesn't it? But if we count our stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We need to have 14 stitches. If we turn it over, you'll see that that stitch we've just done was into the second stitch of the previous round. So we need to do a stitch into the top of this chain 3 at the beginning. This little loop here that I'm holding out, that's where we need to put our hook in to do our last stitch of this row. So it can be a little bit fiddly, so I tend to hold it with my fingernail, poke the hook under, through 2. Oh, don't be alarmed, you'll probably see it. It looks like it pulls up a big gap, but that'll all even out as we work on, it'll be fine. So now we've got 14 stitches, which is what we should have in every row. You should have 134 in every row. So if you're not sure, if things are looking a bit weird, just count your stitches and make sure you're catching that last one. Alright, the next 4 rows are exactly the same. So I'm just going to do one more, and then I'm going to change over to our next colour and show you what to do. So I'll see you when we're ready to change to the next colour. Okay, now this is 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows. You'll do 6 rows of this colour before you change colour, but for this example I don't need to do that. So far I've got 12 stitches in this row. I need to do one in here. That's 13 stitches. Now the next one is into that little bump again. So can you see that little bump there? That's exactly where we're going. Now this is where we change colour. So we've got yarn over, got 3 loops on the hook. We've put our hook in, so yarn over through 2. Now normally to finish the row you would do yarn over through 2 again. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut off this colour a fair way along. Leave it hanging loose. You're going to get your next colour and you're going to finish this last stitch of this round with this new colour. And it sounds a bit weird, but the top of that last stitch is actually there in that old colour. It's all good. So you want to have a little bit of a loop. Where's my other blue one? Yeah, bit of length to that tail. Now we're going to work 2 rows in this colour, but we're going to do it exactly the same as what we did before. So we're going to turn the work. We're going to start with a slip stitch. Now, because this is a solid stitch blanket, you can actually crochet over these ends as you go, and it'll save you having to weave them in at the end. So lift them up high, poke your hook in under that last loop of the old colour, bring your new colour under and through that new colour loop. Okay, now give all of your ends a pull and it'll all go nice and tight. Now, and chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to work our row as normal, but we're just crocheting over those ends. You can see they're behind the stitch where I've put my hook in. Through 2. Just do that all the way along until you run out of the tail. Then afterwards, just pretend that this is quite a way in, so you can continue crocheting over those ends till you ran out of end. You might have to trim a little bit of the end off on the other side, but this it'll be fine. They'll all be hidden away nicely. Oops. Okay, so we have to do 2 rows of this colour. So I will do 2 rows, and then after 2 rows we're going to do 2 rows using yellow, but the stitch we're going to use is different. So I'll see you when we're ready to move over to this colour. Okay, so here we are at the end of our second row of the dark blue. I've cut off my yarn already. We have to make our last stitch into the top of that little bump in there. So I start my stitch as normal, yarn over through 2. This is where I change over to my new colour. Just pop my yellow on, pull it through those 2. Now, the stitch we're going to use to do our yellow is a shorter stitch called double crochet in UK terms or single crochet in US terms, and it's not tall like this, so we don't need 3 chain before we can start working our stitches. We can just work our stitches all the way across, but we do what's called a turning chain. So we do chain 1, oh sorry, it's hard through the camera, pull it tight, then we turn, and then again we'll poke those ends under and we'll crochet over them as we go. But instead of doing a slip stitch in here like we've been doing before, we just do a single crochet stitch as normal, which is we pull a loop to the front like a slip stitch, but we don't pull it through that one. Then we yarn over and pull it through those 2. So that's our first proper stitch done in the first stitch. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch in our stitch count. So that's our first of our 14 stitches. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to stop going over those ends now, but you would keep going. Oops, missed the hole now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now again, the start of this row was the 3 chains, so that little bump there on the end, we have to do our 14th stitch into. Okay, so we've got 14 stitches all the way across. Now again, because we're just doing a short row again next time, we just do chain 1, which is called our turning chain. It doesn't count in our stitch count. And then we do our stitches all the way across. So this is the first stitch here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now there's no pesky one to go into here, it's just the straight stitch. Now we are going to change to our next colour, so we've put our hook in, and normally we would just yarn over and pull through 2, but because we're going to change back to our blue, we're going to cut off. We're going to finish this stitch with our blue again. Okay, now because, oops, I pulled that a bit tight. Because our next stitches are the long ones again, we need to turn it, and we need to begin with a slip stitch again. Remember, these are the fiddly bits over those ends. So through there and through there, and give everything a pull. And then we'll do our chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then work our stitches as we normally would. And that is all you need to know. We're just going to repeat that same pattern. We'll do 6 rows of this blue, 2 of this navy blue, then 2 of the short stitch rows. And we repeat that 9 times in total. Then after we've finished our 9th stripe, we go back and do 6 more rows of this blue, and then we finish. So I'll just finish off this row. Actually, no, I can put that aside, because I left this one here on my actual full blanket. I left the last end off so I can show you how to weave that in, because we've got nothing, we're not going to be crocheting over that one. So I can show you yarn needle, big-eyed needle. It can be plastic, metal, doesn't matter. Thread it. Now, what we want to do is we want to go back. We're on the back of this work. If you don't know what the back is, you can see that there's sort of like two little legs. Looks like a little bit like a Chinese character, I guess. If we look on the other side, it's like a little V. So if you're seeing the little legs, little man sticking with his legs sticking out, that's the back. So that's the back. We're going to go through the back of this last stitch down to about here and pull it through. Don't pull it tight, because if you pull it tight, you make it all curl up. So just enough in there, and then you see these, the legs, the bottom legs of these stitches. And we're going to thread the needle underneath those. And pull it through. Again, not too tight. Now we're going to go down into the next row, through the middle of the stitch below on the back, and we can go along this way, throwaways. Then we can go back the other way if we want to. All you're doing is just weaving it in so it's unlikely to poke out. We can go down another row if we wish. The needles come unthreaded, that's okay. And I might go back this way one more time. That'll do. I'll find my scissors. Just pull it up a little bit, snip it really close. Then, yeah, you can't really see where it's been woven in at all. So there you go, everything you need to know to make your very own Dory blanket. Next week I have got a Nemo inspired one, which I hope you'll like as well. It'll be a little bit trickier, but still very much doable by the beginner. So there you go, have fun. I hope your little ones like it.